You guys are uber famous. So is the Oprah thing a joke? Or are you guys legit?
I,
I can't
Maddie,
believe you asked that.
it's super embarrassing because Oprah's down on the list. I mean, Dolly Parton really fangirls Kristen Zeman.
Got
Oh,
it.
look, we're gonna light the Dolly candle.
Okay.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
Hollow Bunny. And we all feel hollow sometimes.
Welcome, Maddie. Welcome to the Hollow Bunny Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Kristen Zeman, with my esteemed co-host, Sylvia Moyer. And our millions of listeners would love to hear a little bit about Maddie's background. So take it away.
I'm going to take it away. And as everyone looks at your face or they're just listening, they get to really hear about Matty Fiorenza. He's been a firefighter paramedic for 21 years in Anaheim, California. He's a remarkable guy because after about 10 years on the job, he started experiencing some issues. He recognized that he was having some things come up for him, some anxiety, some stress, and some other things. He was then diagnosed with a pretty significant case of post-traumatic stress disorder, and he'll talk about that a little bit. But what did Matty do with that? And what are the lessons we can learn as human beings, as individuals, and as leaders? We can learn a lot from Matty's story, Matty's experience, and what he did with this stuff that started coming up for him. So Matty talks about how after 13 years of marriage and 3 kids, he experienced a divorce, a real significant and traumatic event in his life. And he talks about that. He didn't know that at that time, it would help drive his passion, which has become helping first responders and their families. Matty, now, as you look at this guy and you say he is twisted steel and sex appeal, we say, yes, he is. He is a fierce, fierce human being. And Matty, in being this incredible warrior, recognized that as a sober mentor to men and women in the first responder community, he had a real story to tell. And he spent several years as a shepherd, and he'll talk about that, at Save a Warrior, the Save a Warrior program. He helped start a very successful first responder only trauma center in Newport Beach, California. He's an instructor, he's a speaker, he's an influencer. I came into Matty's space in a remarkable way and immediately knew that this man was a man of significance. And so we're going to explore a lot of that. I will tell you that Matty has a passion for this first responder community. He has a story to tell. His bunny is solid. So Matty's going to talk about that. He's going to talk about resilience and hope and this path toward healing. And what a delight that the broader Hollow Bunny Leadership Podcast world gets to meet this incredible man, Matty Fiorenza. Matty, welcome.
Wow.
Welcome. Welcome, Maddie.
Thank you guys so much.
For those who don't know, the Hollow Bunny Leadership Podcast is just that. You called him a solid bunny, but we often look at leadership and sometimes people in our lives and in our spaces, and there's a lot of show and no go, and it's kind of the equivalent to the empty suit. And so we came up with this Hollow Bunny concept. And I just want to say from the get-go, I mean, we've just met, but just listening to your background, you're a solid bunny. So, man, I can't wait to hear your story and how you got from there to here.
Yeah, I don't know if I can top Carmen. Carmen, I was listening to her. She's feisty. I want to meet her for sure.
Oh, she is saucy.
She's badass. I was just in Chicago, so I have some family background there. But wow, thank you guys. Listening to all that stuff, I'm sure there are parts of my bunny that are still hollow, but I recognize that, and I think where I was most successful in becoming a quote unquote leader would be in my humility. Knowing that, knowing my limitations and asking for help when indicated, and that's the most successful times coming out of depression, anxiety, PTS, all that stuff. And looking back is when I was most humble, and I think whether or not people want to acknowledge that, because most people, I don't know, especially, and this is my perspective, right, in the first responder world, as a weakness, being humble as a weakness, and not so much, you talk to Navy SEALs and guys in special forces, they're super humble people, so it's like guys look up to them, but yet that part of it is kind of lost. So,
Yeah.
I think that's
You said something that I want to pause on because I want to make sure people heard it, is that, sometimes your bunny isn't a wholly solid, and that happens to all of us. It just means that there are some days then when we're bringing our absolute best, and sometimes that best is just showing up somewhere. So, that is not to say that, you have to be that person for everyone at all times. So it's important to highlight what you just said, and I didn't want anybody to miss it.
Yeah, thank you. So I mean, I'm a little bit on my background. I won't get into too much, but my dad was a Marine, a veteran of the Vietnam War. I come from a long line of service members. I lost my uncle who followed my dad in Vietnam. He died there at 19, and so I always knew I wanted to be of service. My dad and I didn't have the best relationship. Growing up, he went on to become an Orange County Sheriff Deputy and was a sergeant, Medal of Valor for the Orange County Sheriff's Department, and ended up passing away very young at 54 years old. He had a big heart attack and died. So that, I mean, Irish, Italian, Catholic family, let's go, right? It's never a dull moment, that's for sure. And but like I said, I always wanted to be of service. I almost joined the Marine Corps, and I thought, I'm not a big fan of metal flying at me at high rates of speed, so I'll just run into the burning buildings.
Bullets.
Yeah, bullets.
Got it. Okay.
But I mean, if you want to get with the 5.56, if you guys want to get technical, I know you guys like that kind of thing. So, but I don't know. Metal flying fast.
Hang on, I'm gonna dab some gun oil behind my ears here real quick.
Wow.
Okay, carry on.
I know. To an earlier podcast, I heard some foreplay stuff about sirens and stuff. Man.
Right.
Yes. I digress. So, anyways, yeah, I decided to join the fire service instead, and put on a uniform again. And I was a sheriff. I was a explorer for the sheriff's department in San Bernardino County for a very short period of time. I think that's where I went. Yeah, I don't know if this is for me, but yeah.
So you chose the fire service,
Yeah.
an equally, I think, masculine endeavor. Which, as you're speaking about humility, Matty, there's a really interesting piece there that we have some professions that really struggle with how raw and vulnerable and humble can one be in carrying out the service. I think that's what is that what you're kind of reflecting?
Yeah, for sure. It's like in regards to leadership, and we talked about this a little bit, Sylvia and I didn't set out to be a leader, and what I became a leader in was not on the agenda, and it just happened organically, and a lot of it came from, most of it came from humility and vulnerability. That's where I connected with people.
Can we pause there for a second? So you said what you became a leader in was not really what you expected. So I'm guessing you were thinking like hose dragging stuff, dragging a hose and putting wet stuff on, what do you do? Like red stuff,
yes.
Like putting out fires, some kind of technical or tactical piece is what I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But I think what we have come to know with you and what our listeners are really going to grasp is your leadership organically emerged through your struggle, your suffering, your humility. And so you're a leader in what space, Matty?
I would say in the mental health space for first responders.
Okay.
And I remember talking to one of my mentors, LAPD officer, retired. He's like, an expert witness, Matty, is just someone who knows a little bit more than the average person. And I was like, okay, well, I've been through it. I've read a lot of books. I put down the video game controller, and I picked up these things called books. They got really good information in them. And I started reading about, this stuff. I started having different experiences through my own work, through 12-step, the work I was doing at Save a Warrior. And what I didn't know is that this whole career as a first responder was just setting me up for what I was going to do later in life, and that's, a day at a time. And it's, that like going on medical aids and being able to, as a paramedic, and being able to put the pieces together, get on scene, find out what's going on, and take action with the appropriate action. It just helped me later on when we were, like, for instance, at Save a Warrior, and we have, one of the first responders or veterans there, and we're trying to help them process something, and they swallow hard, right? It's like that right there. That's what I want.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want you to give voice to, and I wouldn't have been able to pick up on stuff like that had I not done the career. And I didn't even know, things that just you innately start looking at as a first responder, So, it's just,
Matty, so when you said, obviously you're a leader in this space, and, in order to become a leader, you have to emerge as one, but first, you must be a good follower. Was there someone or something, you mentioned reading books, is that what enlightened you into, wow, this is affecting me? Did someone lead you down that road to get the help that you needed, or was it like a rock bottom situation where you just said there is nowhere else to go? And so did you look at that as a new beginning? Tell me how did you get, the awareness to even become, present in that space?
I'll tell you, the worst night of my life. The worst night of my life. Thank you to CHP for pulling me over and giving me a DUI. That was the night that changed my life. And it was the dark night of the soul, but it had to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It had to happen. That was the worst night of my life, and it changed my life forever. And
how long ago was that?
That was in 2016. Yeah.
Wow. That especially resonates with me. And just as a personal aside, my father was a police officer and an alcoholic, and my mom and I would find my dad on the front lawn of our yard and in the morning, and they didn't do him any favors. I can remember one night he hit 6 parked cars. Thank God no one was hurt, including him, but they didn't help him. They threw him in the front yard, and we found him the next morning. And when I hear your story, my dad ended up killing himself. And I wonder if those cops would have done what they should have done instead of dropping him in the front yard, if he would have gotten the help that he needed. And so just that aside, that resonates with me so strong. What a gift that was for them to give to you.
Oh, I'm an emotional guy, and I'm so sorry.
Oh no, it's this is where the resilience is built, and this is why I've spent my life trying to combat the same as you. I haven't personally gone through it like you have, but just what you said just sparked that in me, is that sometimes to help people, you have to do the unpopular thing.
And you know what? To the defense of the guys who did that, and still happens today, it's in the drinking's in the culture. First of all, we have a bunch of people that have brain injuries. PTSD is a brain injury, and they're used all different kinds of ways of dissociation, and drugs and alcohol are an easy one. So when a guy shows up to work and we just put him to bed, we just don't know what we don't know. That's just a good old boy way of doing things, and that I was very unpopular. I lost a lot of friends when I came back to work, and we could talk about it a little bit, because I'll talk about it forever. Sylvia knows this is the thing that brought us together. But when I came back from my own experience as Save a Warrior, I didn't think I'd make it back to work, number one, and then I did, and the guys were like, "What happened to you?" you're not the same guy. Like I was just sitting at the table quiet. And then I would go out on the out floor or outside the window, outside the station by the barbecue, and just sit there and meditate. And they're like, what the hell are you doing? What are you doing?
Did you get shit
Oh,
for
yeah.
that? Or okay, you did. Yeah. Cause
Guys
that's,
would make fun of me.
yeah, that's important to
Oh,
know.
you know what?
Okay.
I was living life in the higher vibrations, and I knew what I had been through. And then when you experience meditation and you experience a daily practice and a group of people that are in community, and you're doing the work, you just start having empathy for people. You become the observer, you know, and you're just like, and when they're making fun of me, I'm just thinking, oh, you poor guys, you know.
Oh, I love that. That is the epitome of true strength when you can do that, when you can say, listen, you know, if it's not for you, great. But, you know, where you don't, you know, what they say about fitting in and belonging, right? Is like so many times we try to fit in. And so we, you know, we don't want to make ourselves stand out, but belonging is to be able to do exactly what you're doing and have people accept you, you know, and hey, if you get shit for it,
You know,
who cares, right?
It was working for me. And you know, what we break down at Save a Warrior is essentially anger is fear and sadness. The only way through sadness is tears, and underneath the fear is shame. And shame is feeling like you're going to get disconnected from the tribe. If you guys know what's going on inside of here, you'll kick me out of the tribe, and you won't let me be part of it. When in fact, it's the exact opposite that happens. When I tell you my truth, we connect, because me too. You know.
You know, Matty, it is it's striking, and I get Kristen's response, and my hunch is that a lot of people are going to listen to this and have some real connection with you, because it's striking, because you did for you. You started building your own practice, your resilience, the way that worked for you. Oren J. Sofer says this. I want to offer this for you, and then on the other side, I want to get your response to it, because there's a real Matty lesson. There's probably a real leadership lesson here. Oren J. Sofer said, seeking relief from pain or discomfort through distraction or pleasure helps a beleaguered nervous system. And he said the danger is when the choice to seek relief becomes a chronic reflex to anything uncomfortable. Over time, we become incapable of tolerating even the smallest amount of pain without immediately doing something to change it. And what you have offered, and what I have seen you offer, is that you have to feel the pain, let it pass, and that the presence is essential to navigate these places of pain. We've talked about that. Do you have a response to that in you? And what could you offer for people to really contemplate regarding what Oren J. Sofer said and your experience kind of weaved together?
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, that says it all, right? You gotta feel it to heal it. First of all, what does that mean? It means that pain is a really good teacher, and that's how we're designed.
Yes, sir.
We're designed for struggle. We are designed for struggle. We're not designed to be separate and isolated. We're designed for struggle. We're designed to work as a tribe, as a community. And pain's a good teacher. So I had to be in a lot of pain, you know, and it was after my DUI, I still went out there. I didn't think I was an alcoholic, you know, but as I got in more and more pain, and then ended up getting into the rooms, and then seeing a therapist, and then starting the work and starting to meditate, right? And then the physical pain I was having started to dissipate a little bit, because we're all, you know, it's the longest 18 inches you'll travel from your brain down to your heart, you know, but pain is.
Matty, then why is it what you just said when you said it's innate, that we have to walk through pain? Why is that so hard for people to get? It is that I will avoid pain at any cost. I will. So if this is something that is so natural and innate for us, we avoid it. I mean, that's why we turn to the bottle. That's why we do all of the things. So it's like, it's so counterintuitive.
I love this subject. It's grief. People don't grieve properly. PTS is unmourned grief. We don't want to cry our tears, especially men, because we are told if you cry, you're a pussy. Suck it up. When it's not true. Warriors went out back in ancient times and they fought wars. They were humble people. They came back. The elders of the tribe did ritual with them. They wept with these men. And when they were ready and processed, they let them back out in the tribe. And then eventually those guys became the elders. We've lost that in our culture. Let's take this pill, grab this bottle, watch this porn, chase this chick. It's just, it's go on Instagram, Netflix for hours. Like, pick your poison. I had a buddy who, numb out. Dissociation is just how you numb out. How do you numb out? What do you do when no one's looking to try to stop this from going? When this thing is just doing exactly what that passage said. The more we set up these neural pathways, and it's a pathophysiology of addiction. When this happens, I reach for this. And those are very hard things to break without a lot of work and a lot of dedication. And this idea that, that if you make a mistake, you can't get back up and keep going. Man, I've had one of the worst years of my life. But you know what? I'm back. I'm back. And you have to have a couple of the dark nights of the soul. You don't just get well. Resiliency is just, it's a ongoing thing, but I can look at my part in things. I can make amends to the people I need to make amends to. How am I going to do things differently? Because the universe, God, whatever you want to call this whole journey that we're on, it's just going to keep pointing back to the same stuff. Like, how are you going to handle it this time, Matty? Are you going to drink over it? Are you going to get angry over it? Are you going to look at your part in it and be empathetic, show some compassion, and then you'll get the next lesson and then the next one. But we're still moving in this kind of trajectory. And that I call it the secret sauce, and what Sylvia and I connected over when I saw her on an interview with the 10% Happier guy. And I'm like, I'm in love. This is a police chief who's talking about teaching meditation to her people, and I just wanted to get a hold of her. And meditation is the secret sauce. It helped me to be in my body, to drop down into my heart, to get out of this thing when knowing the physiological changes that happen in our brains from trauma, from having a career like we have, and then reaching for things that are not good for us,
It's so bizarre to me, the resistance to meditation, because so what I've tried to do is, tell officers that it's just called tactical breathing. What's that thing you do when you're on the range and you're trying to steady yourself and, hit center mass? What's that thing you do when you're scared out on the street? You control your breathing and you become still and aware. And it's no different when you're going through an emotional event. But for some reason, even though people practice it every day, just by calling it meditation, people think it's woo woo when, it's actually, it's the very same thing.
And I teach meditation to first responders, and I can go into this, there's so much to it, and I stick to the science behind it when I teach first responders because they can get behind it. Mm-hmm. But I know what it's doing. I know the other things and I'll tell you, why are people so resistant to meditation? Because it's not all freaking rainbows and unicorns. There are moments of, where did that just come from? I don't want to sit with that. It goes back to the pain thing. Where did that come from? I don't want to sit with that. Because a part of us is whole, perfect, and connected to the universe. And it's in here. The answers are in here. They're not out here. And that's why I became a leader, was because I started looking within and not looking at this person, I just started trudging my own path. You know how you look at people sometimes, you're like, how did that woman get there? Like, it's like, you listen to these stories.
Buddy.
And it's only so long that you can, if you're not true to yourself, if you're not your authentic self, if you're not working at daily practice, it's going to catch up to you. People are going to find out that you're a hollow bunny.
And you make a really good point about the resistance to being still, because you're only left with your own thoughts and feelings in those moments. And you're exactly right. All the times that you want to numb out, and forget the pain. But when you are still and silent, you are very much sitting in all of that awareness, and that's painful. But as we know, the only way to get to the other side is to go through.
And that's when the wisdom comes up. When you can settle your thinking down enough, that's when the wisdom comes up, and it's non-linear. You can have an aha moment that'll change your life sitting in a 20-minute meditation. Wow. Or it'll be terrifying, but you know what? Right? Your brain is processing things. It's putting things where they belong, like I said, I'm so passionate about it. I love it.
And Matty, you're such an interesting figure in this space, because one would look at you and think, wow, that's a studly dude. And one would, I think, assign some common masculine kind of descriptions of you, quite deserving, by the way. And so mindfulness practice is simple, but it's not easy. Meditation is a pathway to mindfulness, and mindfulness being that about grounding ourselves where we are in a readiness to respond to the situation that we've been called to. That's this mindfulness thing, right? And you're speaking about what's so fascinating. Kristen talked about it. You talked about it. It has been the hallmark of a lot of our practices. I call it the gotta goes. My friend Diz said, I got the gotta goes. When you get that frantic kind of, I gotta go. I don't know where I have to go, but I got to go somewhere. I got to move. This thing that you're talking about in meditation, pathway to mindfulness, pathway to resilience, all these things, it is about noticing that thing that comes up in the gotta goes, noticing it, saying thank you, breathing it, and letting it pass. Feel the pain and let it pass. And there's a real strength in what you teach for people. There's also a real leadership lesson in that. And if we say that leadership really is viewed as an activity rather than a set of traits, you're a leader, Matty. And so when you consider that, what do you think is the big leadership lesson for those people that are listening right now? And I don't know, they're ramping up their treadmill and they're trying to just get through it, and they're listening to you. What are some of the quick leadership things that you have to offer them related to all this stuff that we've been talking about?
I would say, find a daily practice. Have some kind of a daily practice, whatever that may be. Reading your religious texts, meditation, prayer, 12-step, yoga, whatever your practice is. Find your practice somewhere where you can just sit quietly, sit in nature, hiking, whatever, and the answers are all inside. If you can calm yourself down, get away for a little while. It's self-care, and then start listening to the quiet voice that comes up, because mindfulness is paying attention to the present moment on purpose, non-judgmentally. Right? When you can do that, then you can start being your authentic self. And then you start trudging your path. You start finding out what your purpose is, because we all have a purpose. I am so positively dead set on that. And the answers aren't in some book. You might get inspired, and that's great. But for me, in my own personal experience, and leadership, it was organic, and it was from me sitting quietly and just doing the next indicated step, looking at people that had values that I appreciated, integrity, not just some word on a patch, right? Like integrity, not shaking the tip jar when the Starbucks girl isn't looking, just putting the money in there when no one's looking, just doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do, period. It's so being a man of your word, a woman of your word, because that's all we have. People don't keep their word and they wonder why their relationships are falling apart. It's loyalty, honesty, and integrity. And be that person. And then just sit quietly, have a daily practice, go volunteer somewhere, go give your time away for free, doing something you love doing, help people get what they want in their life, and see how your life turns out. And it's usually from the wound. It's from our own struggle. And a lot of people don't want to look at that.
Matty, you mentioned, that you're a sober mentor now, so recovering alcoholic, and you mentioned the 12-step program. Was that something that you took to right away? And I want you to maybe talk a little bit about your journey for those out there who are, having the same kind of affliction, wanting to stop drinking, but don't really know how. Were you a cold turkey kind of person, or did you have to work all of the steps? Did it take time? Did you fall down, get back up? And, how was that process for you?
And obviously it's a program of attraction rather than promotion. It's, but it works for me. It works for me. And I've fallen down before, but I'll tell you, they are some of the most loving, kind, amazing human beings on this planet. And I never thought that some of my mentors would be alcoholics. And they are. They are some of the loves of my life. Hands down, they've walked me through so much. Hello? Just kidding. Yeah.
Wow. Uh-oh. Damn it. Syl, was that you? Wow. You know what? That was me calling you just to see if your phone was on.
You didn't silence your cell phone thing.
I did that last time, Matty. So this brings me a great joy.
Can you give me an example of humility, siren. just to pump up old Sylvia's head a little bit? We had never met. We had a couple Zooms, I think, together, and we hit it off. And I really wanted to meet her in person. And so I was out doing business development for the treatment center out in Arizona, and because our schedules didn't really meet perfectly because she had some stuff going on and I did too. So she offered this is the police chief, right? She offered to pick me up from a counseling, it's like a counseling center or something that I was doing some work at, and drive me to the airport because that was the only time that our schedules would meet up. And who does, I remember thinking to myself, wow, this is a police chief. I'm just a fireman. I'm not here just trying to help people. You know what I mean? It really spoke volumes of her, and that really put the stamp on, and then I was I only seen her in her uniform. I'm like, she's kind of cute. She had, her toenails were painted. She had little sandals on. Wow.
Weird, Matty. We had an episode where I met a dude on a plane, and
I was just going to say, Matty, as adorable as that is, Sylvia meets people on airplanes that are assigned in the seat next to her and actually has the occasion to bring them home. So you should take a listen to that podcast.
Bob and I were friends for a couple months before you sat at my counter. But Matty, here's the thing. I made a choice. I made a choice to connect with you in the very brief period of time that we had. And so you chose, I chose, you are doing incredible warrior work. And I felt that it was a humble privilege to just spend 30 minutes with you on the way to the airport, connect with you and say, how can I use perhaps my office, the authority that I've been given to give you a bigger audience or support you in whatever way, expecting nothing in return. Okay, cool story. But Kristen, here we go. She's
no. I need to extrapolate this for just a moment because you had mentioned earlier, Matty, that you lost some friends along the way. And I'm sure, in that tribe of people that, you drank with. But what happened between the two of you and how you made each other a priority is something so important that we need to keep talking about. It's about, we're not meant to go through this life solo, and we have to seek out other people that fill our bunny. And truly find people who are like-minded and who elevate us, but also call us on our bullshit. But just the idea that we're all busy, every single one of us, our calendars, and it's like we take some sort of, pride in that as, oh, I'm so busy, I don't have time to meet. But the truth is that every single one of us can make the time for those we prioritize. So kudos to both of you for making that connection. And it's a lesson for every single one of us is we're not too damn busy, to have that conversation or to make that connection with another human being.
Yeah, thank
There
you.
you go. Carry on.
Right.
I didn't give you shit, Sil. You were expecting me to give you shit, and I didn't give you shit.
I will get shit after when it's not being viewers. So, I mean, here's the thing that Matty said to me, and I wrote this in my super black book that I've referred to before. I wrote when I met Matty that he said pain is inevitable, suffering is optional, and I wrote new light in this world equals Matty Fiorenza, a warrior, and I knew that Matty, you had a special story to tell, that your struggle, your suffering, your experience, your emergence, your authentic and vulnerable self would help someone else's story and their struggle. And you've done that. That is not a common thing, Matty. Most people would keep that to themselves. What is it about you that brought all of that into the light of day to help create meaning and a pathway for other people?
There were a lot of good people that came back for me, and I admired that. I remember just suffering, like struggling. We talked about, suffering. Just God, why? Like, what? Why can't I stop doing these things? Why can't I stop this thing from, And I found my way to, to Save a Warrior, where I saw shepherds come back and share their experience, and they were doing well, and they were all hugging each other, and they taught me how to meditate. They just, those men came back for me, and I was like, I want to do that. Like, I want to do that, and then as slowly it became my prayer, and then hey, this person wants you to teach him how to meditate. Okay, I said yes. I said yes to, because Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. I wanted to find meaning in my suffering.
Wow, it's so crazy, Matty, because we reference that book quite often, Kristen and I, and as really central to a lot of what has driven us as leaders. I have to say, if you're to kind of close this with what fills your bunny, a real crisp kind of description for everybody that's on this podcast, Dolly Parton, Oprah, all the millions of
all
listeners.
of them.
What fills your bunny, Matty Fiorenza?
Connection with other human beings. Yeah, and just having conversations that are deep and not surface. And listening to people's stories and showing compassion for people's struggles and being of service, being a servant leader. What can I do for you? How can I help you? That's what fills my bunny. And then not sharing it with anybody, just going about my day.
So Kristen Zeman wrote a remarkable book, Imagining Blue. I'm going to send you a copy, Matty, because although perhaps a different way, but in a deeply meaningful and profoundly vulnerable place, she tells her story, and I think you'll find it really remarkable. Or maybe she could send you one and sign it to her new firefighter bestie.
You put little hearts and maybe a little bunny.
Done. Yeah. Yeah, I'll put lipstick on and seal it with a kiss. Listen, I want to tell you, this is whatever comes out of California just seems like awesomeness. I mean, for both of you. Matty, what a pleasure to meet you. You have truly illustrated what I have believed all along, is that rock bottom is actually an opportunity for a new beginning. And so I know that you had to walk through that pain to get to where you are, but it speaks to your soul and your goodness, how you're helping people through their journeys. So thank you so much for coming on the show today, for being our guest, and for doing all of the work that you're doing out there in the world.
Appreciate you.
And Matty, I will continue to support you. I am in deep and profound respect of being in your tribe, support you, and whatever that looks like, you are doing remarkable work for people and building their resilience, and you are really a remarkable man. So proud of you, and keep doing your thing. We are going to wrap up the Hollow Bunny
Yes, we
podcast.
are.
How are we going to do that, Kristen Zeman?
Well, that's just it for the episode of the Hollow Bunny Leadership Podcast. If you like what we do, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. It makes a big difference in helping people find our little show. Your hosts are me, Kristen Zeman, and the beautiful Sylvia Moyer, and our executive producer is Ted Madden. And now I give you Jake Zeman and his friends Fabian and Zoe, who created our very own Hollow Bunny Leadership theme song. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. See you next time.
When you look inside, what do you find? Are you content to fall behind? When you lose your way and you've lost your why, have courage and get ready to fight the Hollow Bunny. When the way ahead is covered in smoke and you're tired and scared and you're losing hope, you'll open your heart and your eyes to see a challenge and a question. Why not me? To fight the Hollow Bunny. And we all feel hollow sometimes, but the monsters are only in your mind. It's a tough pill to swallow, but if you're brave and kind, you'll be alright. If you fight the Hollow Bunny. When the challenge ahead scares you to death, you tame the imposter inside instead. To change the world, you've got to start small. It takes a leader to say, I don't know it all. And I know I'm gonna fall, but I'll pick it up and come back stronger. Failing forward and moving onward, doing the hard thing and the right thing, forever fighting the Hollow Bunny. And we all feel hollow sometimes, but the monsters are only in your mind. It's a tough pill to swallow, but if you're brave and kind, you'll be alright. If you fight the Hollow Bunny. If you're tough on the outside but empty within, something's gonna crack, you've gotta start again. And we you're tough on the outside but empty within, something's gonna crack, you've gotta start again. The monster